Hello and welcome to a video series on deep learning with PyTorch. This is part one of the video series, and in this particular part we are going to discuss basically the installation of PyTorch on local machine, and we will also be doing some of the hello world in PyTorch. PyTorch basically is a very powerful deep learning framework, and it is by Facebook Artificial Intelligence, Facebook AI. And for example, on their homepage at Facebook, if we just go, for example, on ai.facebook.com/tools/PyTorch. So we will be having, for example, some of the overview of this particular package that is built for deep learning. So for example, that's from Facebook Artificial Intelligence. The characteristics of PyTorch: it has dynamic nature and very powerful kind of distributed training on clusters, AWS, mobile for iOS and Android, and also it has a lot of support for learning. For example, there is a course on PyTorch, and there are a couple of tutorials, as well as there is a complete book on deep learning with PyTorch. For example, if you open up this book, that's a complete book on this PyTorch, and basically it covers basics, and a lot of advanced stuff can be done in PyTorch. So basically it's really for example, there are other frameworks like TensorFlow by Google and MaxNet by Apache. It's really hard to actually distinguish one framework over the other. For example, TensorFlow has its own strengths, PyTorch has its own strength, and MaxNet, they also actually claim for a lot of speed up over the existing networks. They have its own strength. But I personally feel, and that's my personal opinion, that most of the industrial development so far, industry and deployment kind of development, the products, they are basically built in TensorFlow, and that's my my reading. It may have errors and stuff. And a lot of academic research, the research-oriented kind of deep learning, that is going on PyTorch. MaxNet, however, I mean, a lot of universities, for example, institutes like CMU, MIT, Stanford, Hong Kong University, and other, they're also going to MaxNet, and AWS actually has designated MaxNet as a framework of choice. But nonetheless, I mean, PyTorch itself has its own great, place in when it comes to deep learning frameworks, and having the idea of PyTorch actually is great for a lot of research stuff, a lot of production stuff, and stuff like so. Also, I should mention that the coding style of PyTorch is much similar to the coding style in MaxNet. We already have a video series on MaxNet on YouTube. You can go and watch that. So let's dive in by the way, you can code the whole stuff like TensorFlow. You can code the whole stuff in Google Colab if you want. So you can go to Colab and you type all these things if you want to stay away from the installations. If you, for example, want to install that on your local machine on a CPU environment, in this video, in this part of the video series, I'm going to actually tell you the steps to install on the local machine. So let's go to for example, the PyTorch home page. Getting started, it has a lot of variants. For example, PyTorch is available in different variants. It is available for Linux, Mac, as well as Windows. You can install it through Conda, pip, libtorch, or you can have source. It is available in Python as well as in C++ and Java. And if you have CUDA or GPU kind of support, you can select the variants for that. In my case, I'm installing this only for a CPU variant, and I have these kind of the selections. You can change the selections and you get different. And also I'm going to install it through Conda. So first of all, before actually installing it through Conda, let me make an environment for it, a new environment. So let me make an environment, for example, Conda create name. Let's say the environment name, let's say PyTorch 2. I'm writing PyTorch 2 because I already have an environment PyTorch with PT. So let me make another environment just to go through the whole process. Making different environments for different kind of tasks is always good in Python. So I will recommend to make this practice. So making environments for different environments to stay away from the clashes and kind of the incompatibilities of different packages in Python. So let's make this environment. So yes, okay. Now let's activate this environment. Conda activate PT PyTorch 2. Let's say that's activated. Now we have to actually install PyTorch here. So let's go and see if we want to install through Conda. If we want to install through pip, we have to install pip first in the new environment. So let's install it through Conda. And let's go there and we install it through Conda. One other thing that you might have drive on Windows, for example, you may have drive permissions, writing permissions. So it is okay to use local just to set the writing permissions on the directory. So then you press enter, and from the internet it will be actually fetching the required package, and it will be installing it for you. So let's go through the whole process and see how it goes. Yeah, so it's doing some required stuff for installation. So let's wait for it and see how it goes. It may take a couple of minutes to do that. So yeah. So what it basically does is it actually use some cached copy of that. So it actually does it very quickly. And the reason is I already have installed version of PyTorch in another kind of environment. In your case, if you're going to install it for the very first time, it may take a couple of minutes to download the package and then install. So that should be perfectly okay. So let's test whether it has been installed or not. Let's test that on Jupyter Notebook, but in this new environment, you may not have Jupyter installed already, and maybe we want to install Jupyter through pip. So let's install pip first. Conda install pip. So it may take a couple of minutes to do that. So let's install that. Yeah. So already installed. So then let's install, for example, pip install Jupyter, just to, yeah, it may take a couple of minutes to do that. So yeah, so it's almost there. So let's wait for it. So it's about to end. It's installing Jupyter for us. Maybe if you're working in another coding environment, you may not need Jupyter, but for the beginners, I will recommend to stay on Jupyter and make other environments. Different environments for different tasks. For example, if you want to work in TensorFlow, make a different environment for that. If you want to work in MaxNet, make a different environment. If you are going to work with PyTorch, make a different environment. That's recommendation, and things will become a lot easier. So everything is set. One other thing, you may want to access a lot of data sets in PyTorch, for example, image data sets. For that, we may need another helper package, Torch Vision. So let's install that as well. Pip install Torch Vision. So that's for vision data sets. Yeah, so everything's set. Let's now check our installation, Jupyter Notebook. Let's just open it up and do some of the very basic stuff. So let's have Python 3 and so one problem that is normally there on Windows, for example, this was there in when I installed MaxNet on my system. Maybe you get the same error as well. Is the pywin32 error. So that is there. Sometimes it is there. So that is just to correct the variant. This error may not be there if you're working in Linux or Mac. So let's go back and fix this error by installing a little older version of pywin32. So let's leave that. Let's end this and let's finish this by Control-C on Windows. And yeah, it's about to, it's shutting down the terminals. So yeah, so let's now install pip install pywin32. In my case, I have Python 3.8. Version 2.5 is working perfectly. So let's install that. It will uninstall the already installed 2.8 version and will then install 2.5, which actually pings this DLL. So now let's Jupyter Notebook. So now let's open up this, and I guess there will be no kernel error. Yeah, no error there. So let's name it as PyTorch hello world. So let's hide this. Let's see, import torch. If everything is working fine, that's the torch. And let's say we have tensor x torch dot zeros. Let's say 3 by 3, and you might have this tensor available. So which means all set. Torch is installed. Torch Vision should have also been installed, no problem. Here, for example, just to compare, in MaxNet, we normally work in the package ND for arrays. Here we have to work in the package Torch, and it will generate the n-dimensional arrays are normally tensors. So we can work with tensors just like we are working with, for example, NumPy arrays. So for example, x is equal to torch dot rand, for example, random, let's say 4 by 3, let's say this. We can print this, we can have shapes for that, and we can convert this tensor to NumPy to tensor, not a big deal. I mean, there are, for example, let's print this x dot size. Let's print that size. So for example, this function actually tells what's the size of this torch. So this is 4 by 3. You can save that. You can have, for example, multiple tensors. For example, y equals torch dot rand maybe 4 by 3, and then you can simply add the two tensor x plus y, and you can just print them out, the result, just like you're working with NumPy arrays. And you can go back and forth. For example, you can convert this to NumPy array, you can index, you can slice, and do everything just like you're doing with NumPy. So for example, if you want to convert this x to NumPy, for example, z equals x dot NumPy, so now this z will no longer be a torch tensor, it will be a NumPy array. So that's a NumPy array, n-dimensional NumPy array. So now we have installed Torch. We also have installed We also have installed the Torch Vision for computer vision datasets, for image datasets. In the next part of this video, I'm going to actually show you how to build and train a plain neural network. And let's say we want to do that on C410 dataset. And in the last part of this video series, I'll be actually going to implement a convolutional neural network in PyTorch. So the purpose of the next two parts of this video series is not to actually come up with a very good neural network classifier. Actually, the goal is to learn the basic building blocks of PyTorch for deep learning, for building a plain neural network and building, for example, convolutional neural network. So hope to see you next time.